It was just another shift at the hospital. My name is Eliza Bennett, a 40-year-old nurse who has seen it all. I love my job, even though it can be tough. The hospital is often short on specialists, so I frequently pull double duty, working in the and wherever else I'm needed. Tonight was no different. The emergency room was its usual chaotic self, nurses and doctors rushing back and forth, machines beeping, patients waiting. It was the kind of environment I had grown used to over the years. At home, things were different. My husband, Michael, was busy climbing the political ladder as an assistant to the mayor. We had long stopped discussing my work. He never showed much interest in it anyway. Our marriage had become an arrangement of silent understanding. We lived under the same roof, yet we were worlds apart. We never had children. I had wanted them, more than anything, but fate had other plans. Over time, Michael made it clear that he was fine without them. He liked the quiet. And so, it had just been the two of us, existing rather than living. The was buzzing with activity when I heard the sharp wail of an ambulance siren. I instinctively turned toward the sound. A call had just come in, something about a sick baby. I've always had a soft spot for children, and before anyone else could volunteer, I stepped forward. "I'll go," I said. My colleague, John, was already at the wheel of the ambulance. He was a good guy, always ready with a joke to break the tension. We had worked together for years, and we understood each other's rhythm. "Ready for another adventure, Eliza?" he asked with a grin as we hopped into the ambulance. "Always," I replied, giving him a half-smile. As we drove, we made small talk, discussing the weather, a new restaurant in town. It was our way of keeping the tension at bay, a mental trick to stay calm before facing whatever awaited us. When we arrived at the address, I immediately noticed how upscale the neighborhood was. Large, elegant houses lined the streets, each one looking like it had been plucked straight out of a magazine. John let out a low whistle as we pulled up in front of a massive, well-lit home. "Someone's doing well for themselves," he murmured. I just nodded, already grabbing my medical bag. The front door swung open before we even knocked. A young woman, probably in her early 20s, stood there cradling a baby in her arms. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. "Please help my baby," she pleaded, her voice shaking. "He has a fever, and he won't stop crying." Behind her stood an older woman, her mother, with the same delicate features and worried expression. "Let me take a look," I said, keeping my voice calm and reassuring. They led us into a spacious living room, where I began examining the baby. The moment I placed my hand on his forehead, I knew something was terribly wrong. He was burning up. His tiny body trembled, as if he were having spasms. Adrenaline kicked in. I had seen cases like this before, and I knew time was not on our side. "John, we need to cool him down now," I said urgently. John, sensing the urgency in my voice, nodded quickly and sprang into action. What I didn't realize at that moment was that this night, this sick child, was going to turn my world upside down. "Understood, Eliza. I'll get some ice packs and a cool cloth," John said, hurrying to gather supplies. As he moved swiftly, I turned back to the young woman, whose hands trembled as she cradled the sick infant. "I'm Eliza. What's your baby's name?" She was on the verge of tears. "His name is Liam. He was fine this afternoon," and then suddenly, her voice broke as she struggled to finish the sentence. "It's okay," I said gently, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. "We're going to take care of Liam." John returned with the ice packs and a damp cloth, and we worked together to bring down the baby's fever. The young woman, Sophia, as I later learned, and her mother stood close, their eyes filled with worry. "Is he going to be okay?" Sophia's mother asked. She was trying to stay strong, but her voice betrayed the fear behind her calm facade. "We're doing everything we can," I assured her. Minutes felt like hours, but slowly, Liam's fever began to drop. The convulsions subsided, and his tiny body relaxed. A wave of relief washed over Sophia as she let out a shaky breath. "Thank you," she whispered, holding Liam closer. "We should still take him to the hospital for further evaluation," I suggested. "Better safe than sorry." Sophia nodded without hesitation. Of course, whatever he needs. Just as we prepared to transport Liam, the front door suddenly swung open. I barely paid attention until I heard a voice that sent a chill down my spine. What's going on here? Sophia, are you okay? I froze. That voice. I knew it anywhere. Slowly, I turned and there he was, standing in the doorway. Michael. My husband. Our eyes met, and for a moment, time itself seemed to stop. Eliza? His voice was laced with shock and something else. Fear? I swallowed hard, keeping my expression unreadable. I could ask you the same question. Michael's gaze darted between me, Sophia, and the baby. His posture stiffened, his usual confident demeanor unraveling. Sophia looked between us, confusion flashing in her wide eyes. You two know each other? Michael opened his mouth as if to answer but hesitated, looking like a deer caught in headlights. Finally, he spoke. Eliza is my wife. Sophia's mother let out an audible gasp. Sophia herself went pale. I confirmed his words, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. Yes, I am his wife. Silence fell over the room. The weight of realization settled over Sophia as she stared at Michael, her hands tightening around Liam. Your wife, she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. The hurt was evident in her trembling tone. Michael remained frozen, his face unreadable. Sophia's breath hitched. But you told me you were divorced. I clenched my fists, waiting for Michael's response. But instead of an explanation, all he did was drag a hand down his face in frustration. I know, he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. I was going to tell you. You just what? Sophia's mother cut in, her voice sharp. Lied to my daughter? Lied to all of us. John, who had been silent up until now, cleared his throat. Maybe we should give you some space to talk this out. I shot him a grateful glance. Yes, we should go. Liam is stable, but he still needs to be seen at the hospital. Just as John and I started to move Liam's carrier, the front door opened once again. This time, another unexpected figure walked in. An older man, tall, with an air of authority. The moment I saw him, I recognized him instantly. Mayor Thomas Harrington, Michael's boss. His sharp eyes scanned the room before settling on Sophia. What's all this commotion? Sophia's face crumpled as she turned to him, her voice breaking. Dad, this is... The room was thick with tension as all eyes fell on Michael. The mayor's sharp gaze landed on him. Michael, what's going on? Before Michael could even open his mouth, Sophia blurted out, her voice laced with betrayal. Michael's married, Dad. And he lied to me about it. A stunned silence filled the air. The mayor's expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, then quickly to anger. Married, he repeated slowly, his voice dangerously calm. Is this true, Michael? Michael nodded, unable to meet his boss's gaze. Yes, sir. It's true. I could see the wheels turning in the mayor's mind, the weight of the revelation hitting him like a ton of bricks. He turned to me. And you're his wife? Yes, I am, I confirmed, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. The mayor exhaled sharply and shook his head. I can't believe this. You've been working for me for over a year, and I had no idea. Michael finally tried to speak, his voice low and strained. Sir, Save it. The mayor cut him off, holding up a hand. I need some time to process this. I watched as Sophia broke down, her sobs filling the space between us. Her mother wrapped an arm around her, whispering soothing words, but it was clear nothing could undo the damage. The mayor's gaze softened as he looked at his daughter and granddaughter, sadness and anger mixing in his eyes. He had come home expecting an ordinary evening and instead walked into a disaster. And me? I felt like an outsider, watching a drama unfold that had somehow become my own life. My marriage, my trust, my very sense of reality, it had all been shattered in an instant. John, sensing the unbearable tension, gently touched my arm. We should go. I nodded, snapping back to my duty. Liam still needs medical attention. Without another word, we left. But as I walked out the door, I stole one last glance back at Michael. He stood there, frozen in place, looking utterly lost. For a fleeting moment, I felt a pang of sympathy. But then, anger surged through me. He had done this, and I had no idea what came next. After ensuring Liam was safely admitted to the hospital and in good hands, my mind refused to rest. The entire drive home was a blur, my thoughts a tangled mess of questions, hurt, and betrayal. I needed answers. I needed to talk to Michael. When I pulled into the driveway, his car was already there. He hadn't run, hadn't disappeared into the night like a coward. That at least meant something. Taking a deep breath, I stepped inside. The house was eerily quiet. Michael was sitting at the kitchen table, his hands clasped together, his shoulders slumped. It looked like he hadn't moved since he got home. The moment I walked in, his eyes lifted to meet mine.
Guilt, shame, fear,
all written across his face. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, I broke the silence. My voice was low but steady. How long? Michael swallowed hard. Eliza, How long, Michael? I repeated, sharper this time. A long, painful pause. Then, finally, 2 years. The words hit me like a physical blow. 2 years. For 2 years, my husband had been living a double life. Deceiving me. Deceiving her. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. So, everything, all those late nights, all those work trips. They weren't all lies, he said quickly, desperate to explain. I never meant for this to happen. I swear to you, Eliza, I didn't plan this. I let out a bitter laugh. You didn't plan it? So what? You just tripped and fell into a whole other family. Michael winced, running a hand down his face. I was going to tell you. You just what? Didn't want to ruin your perfect setup? Didn't want to lose your cushy job with the mayor? Or were you just waiting for me to find out like this? He had no answer. Because there was no good answer. And in that moment I knew there was no coming back from this. Michael's mouth opened, but no words came out. I could see it. The fear in his eyes, the desperate search for the right thing to say, something that could fix this. But there was nothing. Eliza, he stopped, his voice faltering. I exhaled slowly and sat down across from him, gripping the edge of the table to keep my hands steady. I want to know everything, Michael. No more half-truths. No more excuses. How long has this been going on? Why did you lie to her? To me? Michael ran a hand through his hair, his expression crumbling. It started a year ago, at a work event. His voice was barely above a whisper. I met Sophia, and we hit it off. The words cut deep. Even though I had already pieced it together, hearing him say it made it feel so much worse. Michael swallowed hard, avoiding my gaze. I know I should have told her the truth, but I saw an opportunity. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Opportunity. My voice was shaking now, the hurt bleeding into every syllable. He nodded, looking ashamed. With her being the mayor's daughter, I thought. He trailed off, searching for the right words. I thought it could help my career. The air left my lungs. So our marriage? Our life together? That meant nothing to you. Michael's head snapped up. It's not like that, Eliza. I do care about you. He looked desperate now, as if saying it louder would somehow make it true. But I felt stuck. I thought I needed more. My blood turned to ice. And a baby? Did you plan that too? My voice rose, sharp and unforgiving. Was Liam part of your grand strategy to win over the mayor? Michael looked horrified.
No.
That was an accident. But when Sophia told me she was pregnant, he hesitated, his voice thick with guilt. I thought maybe it could all work out. I stared at him, my mind reeling. Work out? I repeated, barely believing what I was hearing. You mean you thought you could just slip into a whole new life? A fresh start? And what about me, Michael? What about our life? Michael looked down at the table, unable to meet my eyes. His silence was the answer. My stomach churned. I wasn't part of your plan, was I? Still nothing. I leaned forward, my voice deadly quiet. You were going to leave me and marry her, weren't you? Michael's jaw clenched. He didn't answer, but he didn't need to. The truth was written all over his face. Tears burned in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I had cried too many tears over this man already. I pushed back my chair, standing slowly. You were waiting for the right moment.
My voice was cold now.
You didn't plan on getting caught. You were just going to string me along until it was convenient for you to leave. Michael's face twisted in regret, but it was too late. I straightened, my heart pounding. You made this choice, Michael. Now I get to make mine. And I already knew what I had to do. I knew the truth now. I couldn't believe this. I can't believe you would do this to me, I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. Michael looked devastated. I'm sorry, Eliza. I never meant to hurt you. I let out a bitter laugh. Sorry? Sorry doesn't fix this, Michael. You've lied to me, to Sophia, to everyone.
And now?
Everything is falling apart. Michael opened his mouth, as if searching for words that could somehow make this better, but I had nothing left to give. I stood up, my body trembling. I need time.
Time to think.
To figure out what I'm going to do. As I walked away, I could feel Michael's eyes on me, but I didn't look back. Everything had changed, and there was no going back. The next few days passed in a blur. I went to work, did my job, smiled at patients, stitched wounds, bandaged cuts, but my mind was miles away. Michael tried to talk to me, to explain, to apologize again. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. And then, one evening, I found myself standing in front of her house. Sophia's house. I wasn't even sure how I got there, just that my feet had led me to her doorstep. A part of me needed answers, needed to understand. I rang the doorbell. A moment later, the door opened. Her eyes widened in surprise. Eliza. I exhaled slowly. We need to talk. Sophia hesitated. For a brief second, I thought she might slam the door in my face. But instead, she stepped aside. Come in. The house was warm, inviting. A home. The kind of home we had once dreamed of having. We sat in the living room, the silence between us thick and heavy. Neither of us knew what to say. How could we? Finally, Sophia spoke. Why are you here? I swallowed hard. I want to understand. What did Michael tell you about us? Sophia's lips trembled. He said he was divorced, that he'd been single for a while. She paused, shaking her head. I had no idea about you. Not until that night. I nodded, a sharp pain cutting through me. Of course. Another lie. And the baby? I asked. Liam? Her gaze dropped to her lap. Tears welled in her eyes. He was a surprise. She took a shaky breath. Michael told me we could be a family, that he wanted to be there for us. I believed him. I heard the pain in her voice. And despite everything, I felt sorry for her. I'm sorry, Sophia, I said softly. I'm sorry he lied to both of us. She wiped her eyes quickly. I'm sorry, too. I never wanted to be part of this. For a moment, we sat in silence. Two women, betrayed by the same man. I finally broke the quiet. Did you love him? The question tasted bitter in my mouth, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to hear the answer. Sophia looked up at me, her expression filled with sadness. I thought I did, she admitted.
But now?
I don't know what to believe anymore. The weeks following Michael's betrayal felt like a stormy sea, each day tossing me between waves of anger, disbelief, and an unexpected sense of liberation. I had spent so many years being his wife, supporting his ambitions, believing in his dreams. Now, I had to figure out what came next. And first, that meant facing him in court. It wasn't just me against Michael. It was me and Mayor Harrington versus Michael. The day of the trial dawned like any other, but with a weight that pressed heavily on my chest. As I walked into the courtroom, my nerves and determination warred against each other. The air was thick with tension, the low murmurs of spectators blending with the shuffling of papers. Then I saw him. Michael walked in, flanked by his lawyer. He looked different, his usual confidence replaced with something closer to dread. He didn't meet my eyes, but I felt the tension crackling between us. Mayor Harrington caught my gaze from across the room and gave me a firm nod. We were in this together. The trial began. The mayor's lawyer wasted no time. Photographs, texts, emails, a timeline of deception so detailed it painted an undeniable picture of Michael's betrayal. Every lie, every manipulation, it was all laid out in black and white. Mayor Harrington took the stand, his presence commanding as always, but there was something raw beneath his anger. Hurt. Disappointment. I trusted him, the mayor stated, his voice firm. I welcomed him into my family, and he repaid that trust with lies. To me, to my daughter, and to his own wife. Sophia was next. She sat stiffly, her hands clenched together in her lap, her voice trembling as she recounted the months of deception. He told me he was divorced. Her eyes flickered toward Michael, full of heartbreak. He said we could be a family, that Liam would have a father. Her voice cracked. But it was all a lie. Michael flinched. Then it was my turn. I took the stand, my heart pounding, hands slightly unsteady as I placed them on my lap. My lawyer stood beside me, his voice calm and measured. Eliza, can you tell us how you first discovered your husband's affair? I swallowed hard. As a nurse, I'm trained to stay calm in emergencies. I began, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. But nothing could have prepared me for the shock of finding my husband with another woman and a child he had kept hidden from me. The courtroom was silent, hanging on my every word. I recounted everything, how I met Sophia that night, how the truth unraveled before my eyes, how the man I had loved for 10 years had built an entire other life behind my back. I could feel Michael's gaze burning into me, but I didn't look at him. He wasn't worth it. When it was Michael's turn, his defense was weak. His lawyer grasped for straws, trying to frame it as a misunderstanding, as if lying about a marriage, a child, and an entire double life could be brushed off so easily. Michael sat there, hunched over, his confidence shattered. When he finally spoke, his voice was hollow. I never meant for any of this to happen. The mayor's lawyer fired back. So, you didn't mean to deceive your wife? You didn't mean to mislead the mayor's daughter? You didn't mean to create a second family under false pretenses? Michael had no response, because there was nothing left to say. And just like that, his carefully built house of lies collapsed. The trial stretched on, filled with legal arguments, testimonies, and excuses. Michael's defense clung to miscommunications and technicalities, but the evidence was undeniable. The texts, the emails, the financial records. He had built his life on lies, and now, one by one, they were unraveling. Michael himself stumbled through his testimony, his once polished words sounding hollow and desperate. Gone was the confident man I had once known, the one who had mapped out his future so carefully. Now, he was nothing more than a man caught in his own web of deceit. And I was done being his shadow. For years, I had stood in the background, supporting his ambitions, sacrificing pieces of myself to make his life easier. But here, in this courtroom, I was reclaiming my life. Finally, the judge delivered the verdict. Michael was found guilty of fraud and deceit in both cases. A murmur rippled through the courtroom, a mix of satisfaction and disbelief. Michael's shoulders slumped. His lawyer leaned in, whispering something, but he barely reacted. For the first time, I saw the truth reflected in his eyes. He had lost everything. As I walked out of the courthouse, the bright flashes of cameras flickered in my vision. Reporters swarmed, microphones extending toward me like grasping hands. Eliza, any comments on the verdict? How do you feel knowing Michael has been convicted? I simply shook my head. No comment. This victory wasn't about them. It wasn't about headlines or scandals. It was personal. It was a step toward healing, toward moving on. Driving home, the weight of the past weeks slowly began to lift. There were still challenges ahead, wounds that needed time to heal. But for the first time in a long while, I felt something I had forgotten existed. Hope. The trial had been more than a battle for justice. It had been a journey of self-discovery. A journey of reclaiming the narrative of my own life. That evening, I sat alone in my quiet home, staring out the window as the city lights flickered in the distance. The trial was over, but its ripples would be felt for a long time. I had won, but at what cost? The weeks that followed were a blur. I threw myself into work, finding solace in the routine of my shifts at the hospital. Each patient, each moment of care, grounded me in something real. Then one evening, while walking through the hospital corridors, I saw her. Sophia. She stood near the waiting area, bouncing Liam gently in her arms. Her eyes met mine, a quiet understanding passing between us. "Hey," she said softly. Her voice was hesitant, unsure. "Hey," I replied, my own voice steady. For a moment, we just stood there. Two women bound by the same betrayal, by the same man. Two women who should have been enemies, but instead, we were something else. Something stronger. Something free. This wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the beginning of something new. A chapter where I was no longer a spectator in my own life, but the author of my own story. And this time, I was writing it for me. "Hi, Sophia." My voice was calm, steady, as I acknowledged the woman who had, unknowingly, been part of the deepest betrayal of my life. She gave me a small, tired smile as she adjusted Liam in her arms. "How are you holding up?" I hesitated for a moment before answering. "Day by day." She nodded. "Yet same." There was no animosity between us, not anymore. Just an unspoken understanding. Two women, bound by pain, by lies, by the same man who had shattered the futures we had envisioned. We exchanged a few more words, simple and polite, before parting ways. A silent acknowledgement that while our lives had been intertwined in the worst way, we had both emerged on the other side. And we were moving forward. Back at home, the silence pressed in. Michael had been gone for weeks, but his absence still carried weight. Maybe it wasn't him I missed, but the routine, the familiarity, the life I thought I had. The finality of the divorce had carved out a new kind of solitude, one I had to learn to live with. It was during these quiet moments that I found myself reflecting, not just on Michael, but on me, the choices I had made, the ones that had been made for me, and the ones I still had left to make. One evening, as I sorted through old paperwork, my fingers paused on an envelope. My name was written across the front in Michael's handwriting. My first instinct was to throw it away, but curiosity won. I unfolded the letter, my heart pounding as I skimmed over his words. Apologies, regrets, justifications, promises that meant nothing now. He talked about his mistakes, about how he wished he had done things differently, how he still wanted to make things right. I let out a slow breath. Too little, too late. Without hesitation, I crumpled the letter in my fist and tossed it into the trash. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Michael was my past, but he would never define my future. A few days later, I got an unexpected call. "Mayor Harrington, I'd like to meet for coffee," he said. "If you're willing. I want to thank you personally." So we met. Sitting across from him in a small cafe, I saw not just a man of power, but a father. One who had been blindsided, just like me. One who had lost trust in someone he once respected. "Your strength during the trial was admirable," he said sincerely. I shook my head. I just did what I had to do. For myself and for Sophia. He nodded. And that took courage. We sat in a rare, quiet understanding. The storm was behind us now, and though we had each lost something, we had also gained something else. Clarity. Before we parted, he offered his support. "If you ever need anything, the city council is here for you." I appreciated the gesture, but deep down I knew I had to stand on my own. In the following weeks, I made a conscious choice to stop looking back, to start focusing on me. I reconnected with old friends, picked up new hobbies, and even considered furthering my education in nursing. The journey wasn't easy. There were days of doubt. Nights of loneliness. But there were also moments of unexpected joy. Freedom. Possibility. For the first time in years, I wasn't tied to Michael's ambitions. I was no longer just the wife he had betrayed. I was Eliza, a woman with her own future to build. Looking back, I realized the past year hadn't just been about surviving a betrayal. It had been about rediscovering myself, reclaiming my own story, and standing not as a victim but as a survivor, ready for whatever the future might hold. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribe for more.